Actor and filmmaker Tyler Perry sued for $260 million over allegations. The complaint filed in Los Angeles accuses Perry of creating a, quote, coercive, exploitative dynamic with actor Derek Dixon.
For years, Tyler Perry was hailed as a success story, an underdog who built an empire with grit, talent, and a message rooted in faith and perseverance. From stage plays to blockbuster movies, he created a brand that many looked up to. But now that once pristine image is starting to crack, with lawsuits swirling, projects collapsing, and fans asking questions they never dared to ask before, the Tyler Perry story is no longer about triumph. It's about the fall of a public figure who may have hidden more than he ever revealed.
Tyler Perry, it was a story maybe like 3 weeks ago, and I think he was in the middle of either producing a movie or doing something. And
he was building an $800 million studio, and he paused the construction.
It started with an announcement that shocked the entertainment world. Tyler Perry, who had proudly unveiled plans for an $800 million studio expansion in Atlanta, suddenly hit the brakes. No red carpet, no celebration, just a quiet pause. His explanation, concerns over artificial intelligence and its role in production. But for many, that didn't add up. Why would someone invest nearly $1 billion only to cancel it over something he should have considered from the start? Just days before the studio halt, the public learned about a $260 million lawsuit filed against Perry by actor Derek Dixon. Dixon, once unknown, now became the center of a media storm, accusing Perry of fostering an environment that was more about control than opportunity. The timing, too close to ignore, fans started connecting the dots. The AI excuse didn't seem to hold weight anymore. It looked like damage control, an effort to avoid deeper scrutiny and fallout.
Sexually harassing me for years. He was claiming, that he had multiple young black men on the payroll, and they just had to show up when he requested them to be there.
Tyler Perry has always controlled the narrative. In interviews, he emphasized faith, community, and giving back. But now, critics argue that this image might have been a carefully crafted shield, hiding a very different reality behind the scenes. When someone builds their brand on values like integrity, any cracks in that image don't just disappoint, they unravel trust completely. According to Derek Dixon's lawsuit, what seemed like mentorship quickly turned into something far more troubling. He described a pattern of behavior where gifts and roles were exchanged for loyalty and silence. Support became control. Opportunities came with unspoken rules. It's not about legal contracts, Dixon said. It's about the silent pressure to comply. The deeper he got into Perry's circle, the harder it became to set boundaries or speak up. In his early days, Tyler Perry told stories of overcoming hardship, of living in his car and climbing out of poverty through prayer and persistence. But the version of Perry that's emerging from this lawsuit isn't the same man fans rooted for. The new narrative is about manipulation, unchecked influence, and an empire built on silence. Even before this lawsuit, critics had raised eyebrows at Perry's operations. Despite running a massive production company, he's long bragged about writing, directing, and producing nearly everything himself. While that sounds impressive, industry insiders began to wonder, was this about artistic control or about shutting others out? Writers' rooms, collaborative storytelling, and open dialogue are vital to quality entertainment, but Perry repeatedly dismissed them. He even admitted that he doesn't rely on feedback or peer review. That's not confidence, that's isolation.
Tyler Perry happened to Black Hollywood, and he did it by using stupid, ignorant, so-called Christian to fund all of his very homosexual behavior.
I started recording, so I have them offering me money to take my clothes off. The difference is, the wonderful thing about confidentiality agreements and non-disclosure agreements is that they can't prevent you from turning all of those things over to the police, because sex is a crime, attempt is a felony. Tams, you literally just asked, why do we as Black people have to deal with that? But sometimes it's our own people. Sometimes it's our own heroes. I'm good. God got me, because he was watching when I was offered these opportunities And I didn't say yes. I didn't sell my soul or my ass. This person is a predator, and he's one of several.
His shows, once praised for giving a voice to underrepresented communities, have recently been criticized for poor writing, shallow characters, and outdated messages. Even some of his most loyal fans have expressed disappointment, wondering why someone with so much power and money refuses to elevate his content. When people questioned his approach, Perry responded with pride rather than openness. And now, that same unwillingness to listen is catching up with him in a much bigger way. The Derek Dixon case is not just a legal challenge, it's a cultural turning point. Hollywood has seen many of its giants face consequences in recent years. What separates Perry's case is the way it tests the public's faith in a figure who marketed himself as a moral leader. It's not just about one man, it's about whether the industry is willing to hold its self-proclaimed heroes accountable. When Joe Rogan addressed the Perry controversy on his podcast, he didn't name names, but his message was clear. Rogan spoke about a growing shift in Hollywood where the old rules no longer apply and where lawsuits and changing values are forcing people to reevaluate who they trust. He said the industry has long operated in silence, but now that silence is breaking. And Tyler Perry, once untouchable, is now front and center in that reckoning. The internet responded with lightning speed. Reddit threads popped up overnight. TikTok creators dissected the lawsuit. Twitter erupted in debates. Some defended Perry, arguing he had done so much for the Black community. Others pointed out that no amount of charity can excuse harmful behavior. In fact, many said using good deeds to cover questionable actions makes it worse. And the pattern that fans began to notice, it wasn't just the lawsuit or the gifts or the mysterious shutdown of the studio. It was Perry's consistent refusal to let others into his creative process, his tendency to dismiss criticism, and his repeated use of vague explanations when asked tough questions. The AI excuse for shutting down an $800 million project didn't hold up under public scrutiny. It felt like a distraction, not a reason. Dixon's story, whether people believe every word or not, raises critical concerns about the power dynamics in the entertainment industry. It challenges the idea that success makes someone above reproach, and it forces fans to question how much of what they admired in Perry was genuine and how much was just part of a well-crafted image.
Done my best to forgive this person. At some point soon, it's gonna have to come out. I've kept one of these on me since '05. Whether it's a keychain recorder or a pen, because most predators would check your phone. Once the semester started, I was like, well, I gotta protect me because I'm saying no, and I don't want this person, as powerful as they are, to try to get in the way of my work.
For a long time, Tyler Perry Studios was seen as a symbol of progress, a Black-owned media powerhouse in the heart of Atlanta. But now, the glitter is starting to fade. People are wondering, was it ever really about uplifting the community, or was it about control and personal legacy? In Hollywood, reputation is everything, and Perry's empire was built on trust. The trust of his audience, his actors, and the community that believed in his message. But trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. And with each new revelation, that trust slips further away. Some of Perry's supporters claim this is just a cash grab by an angry former employee. But the lawsuit isn't just words, it's backed by receipts, screenshots, messages, and timelines that make the case harder to ignore. And even if some elements are disputed, the larger questions remain. Why did Perry halt his biggest project ever? Why did he avoid addressing the allegations directly? And why is the industry suddenly so quiet about a man who once received endless praise? Tyler Perry's story may not be over, but the chapter we're in now is a far cry from the uplifting narrative he built his brand on. And as more people start speaking out, more questions will follow. Did Perry rise by lifting others or by keeping them dependent on his approval? The silence around this case is telling. Major media outlets have been slow to cover it. Celebrities who once praised Perry are staying quiet. And that quiet is what has people talking the most. Because in today's world, silence isn't neutrality, it's a statement. And it's one that many are starting to read as fear. If Perry truly has nothing to hide, then transparency should be his first move. Not vague statements, not sudden studio shutdowns, not silence. But until that happens, the doubts will grow, and the legacy he worked so hard to build may begin to crumble under the weight of those unanswered questions.
Yeah, it might be like Morse code.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
it happens like this.
Well, you saw that Tyler Perry shut down the plans to build this enormous studio. He's going to build an $800 million production studio. And he saw Sora.
Tyler Perry.
He's the
Is
guy who
that the
does
guy
all
who-
those Maeda movies. He's got a bunch of TV series.
I thought he's the extreme makeover guy. Move that bus. Remember that guy? Dude, that was my shit.
No, he's he plays a lady in a bunch of famous movies.
Yeah, he's the
Maeda.
Yeah.
The Tyler Perry brand was built on inspiration, but now it's being questioned like never before. And this moment, this lawsuit, this pause, this public reckoning might be the point where inspiration gives way to investigation. People aren't just fans anymore, they're fact checkers. They're asking real questions and they deserve real answers. Hollywood has changed. The days of hiding behind fame and fortune are over. And if Tyler Perry thinks his legacy alone will protect him from the consequences of his actions, he may be in for a very rude awakening. Because the truth, once it starts to surface, doesn't stop. It spreads. And no amount of silence, spin, or studio money can stop the ripple effect once trust is broken. Tyler Perry may have built an empire, but now it's starting to shake. As the public conversation around Tyler Perry deepens, more cracks in the foundation of his empire are starting to appear. Fans and critics alike are no longer just questioning the lawsuit or the studio shutdown. They're revisiting the entire timeline of Perry's career. His rise to fame is now being re-examined under a new lens, with people asking, were there warning signs all along that everyone missed? Some are pointing back to the way Perry handled his earlier projects. He often played multiple roles in his productions: writer, director, producer, and sometimes even lead actor. At first, it seemed impressive, but now that same approach looks like an effort to control every detail. Not out of excellence, but possibly out of fear that others might challenge him or shine too brightly in his space. Critics argue that this level of micromanagement isn't about quality, it's about power. As more former collaborators begin speaking up anonymously, a troubling pattern is starting to emerge. Several actors and crew members have allegedly described an environment where feedback was discouraged, where schedules were unpredictable, and where loyalty mattered more than talent. For those who wanted to work their way up in the industry, landing a role in a Perry project was seen as a golden ticket. But behind the scenes, many say the opportunities came with a heavy cost, constant pressure, high expectations, and little room to grow outside of Perry's tight grip. Perry's refusal to engage in industry standards, like writers' rooms or collaborative production teams, now seems less like creative independence and more like strategic isolation. It limited others from having influence, but it also insulated Perry from critique. That insulation may have worked for a while, but now it's unraveling. And it's not just creative decisions under fire. People are taking a closer look at how Perry positioned himself within Hollywood. For years, he framed his success as being separate from the traditional system, often describing himself as someone who made it without needing the approval of the Hollywood elite. But that narrative is now facing resistance. Observers say Perry didn't avoid the system. He recreated his own version of it, complete with the same gatekeeping, favoritism, and lack of transparency he once condemned. In light of the lawsuit, Perry's famous connections are coming under scrutiny too. For years, celebrities praised his work, appeared in his productions, and supported his ventures publicly. But now, their silence speaks volumes. Major names who once couldn't stop singing his praises have gone quiet. That lack of support raises even more eyebrows. Are they distancing themselves to protect their own brands? Or do they know more than they're willing to say? What's even more revealing is the sudden shift in tone from Perry's own public statements. He once thrived in front of cameras, sharing motivational stories and encouraging others to chase their dreams. But recently, there's been a notable absence. No press tours, no interviews, no clear defense against the accusations. For someone who built a reputation on resilience and perseverance, his silence is louder than words. Meanwhile, the internet isn't letting go. Social media users are digging into old interviews, archived footage, and long-forgotten articles. They're dissecting everything. From the way Perry talked about mentorship to the way he ran his sets. Some are even drawing comparisons between this case and past industry scandals, arguing that Perry's story follows the same pattern: meteoric rise, total control, and eventual exposure. Journalists and watchdogs are beginning to investigate further. Reports are surfacing about questionable business practices, including sudden firings, underpaid staff, and high turnover among creative teams. Whispers of non-disclosure agreements and behind-the-scenes drama are gaining traction. While these stories haven't all been confirmed, the sheer volume of them is raising serious questions. And then there's the financial side. An $800 million project doesn't just pause overnight without consequences. Investors, contractors, and vendors are now left in limbo. Some have voiced frustrations anonymously, citing lack of communication and confusion around what happens next. If the AI excuse was just a cover, what does that mean for the future of Perry's studio and the many people depending on it for work? In many ways, the unraveling of Tyler Perry's empire is about more than one lawsuit or one person's experience. It's about what happens when power goes unchecked. When one individual controls too much, answers to no one, and creates an ecosystem built entirely around themselves. In that kind of structure, transparency disappears, accountability vanishes, and those at the bottom are the first to suffer. This moment is also a wake-up call for Hollywood. For years, the industry celebrated figures like Perry, who claim to uplift the underrepresented. But now it's clear that uplifting others must come with safeguards, with openness, and with humility. Otherwise, it just becomes another version of the same system people try to escape. As the lawsuit moves forward, more documents may be revealed. Depositions, evidence, and courtroom proceedings could shed even more light on what really happened behind the scenes. If that happens, the carefully managed image Perry built over decades may face its greatest test yet. What's especially striking is how quickly the public perception is shifting. For years, Tyler Perry was seen as untouchable. His story was used as an example in motivational speeches in classrooms. But now, he's become a case study of how image alone isn't enough. In today's world, people want integrity. And when that integrity is called into question, the fallout can be severe. Fans who once defended him are now reconsidering. People are realizing that charisma and generosity don't cancel out accountability. In fact, when someone uses their reputation as a shield, it often raises more suspicion. Why hide behind a brand if you have nothing to hide? The broader entertainment world is watching closely. This isn't just about Tyler Perry anymore, it's about the blueprint he followed. Other powerful figures are likely taking notes, trying to gauge how the public reacts and what lines can no longer be crossed. For younger creatives looking up to Perry, this moment is especially disheartening. Many saw him as proof that you could succeed without compromising your values. But if those values turn out to be a front, what message does that send to the next generation? Perry's legacy is now at a crossroads. It could become a cautionary tale, or it could become an opportunity for reflection and reform if he chooses to face the truth head on. But so far, there's no sign of that. No apology, no acknowledgement, just silence. The entertainment industry is built on stories, but not just the ones on screen. The stories behind the camera matter too. The ones about how people are treated, how power is used, and whether leaders live up to the ideals they promote. Tyler Perry's story isn't over, but it's changing fast. And no matter how much he tries to steer the narrative, the public is now paying attention in ways they never have before.